All right, welcome to Rebel Rankings with Stephen Willis. I am, of course, your host, Stephen Willis. This week we are going to look at the top 5 quarterbacks of the 2000s at Ole Miss. That'll be our ranking this week, the top 5 quarterbacks of the 2000s at Ole Miss. Before we get started, I do want to tell you Matt Corral is not going to be eligible for this list. The reason being, we don't know what his finished product looks like. He has a big year and could look completely different. He could stay 2 more years and be number 1 on the list, or he could have a disastrous 2021 and fall completely off of it. So we don't want to put him on it right now. Active players going into the 21 season, Matt Corral is very high up that list. Just understand that. But for this list's sake, we are looking at quarterbacks that have a full finished product that you can judge from, and you can kind of put them on their list. Our categories are going to be obviously performance on the field, what he meant to the program, just everything. It's going to be more than just the field, and it's going to be my rankings of where I think they should land. If you have different rankings, obviously, put them in the comments below. Let me know. That's completely fine. I'm not against it at all. But this is going to be the top 5 quarterbacks in Ole Miss football history. Of quarterbacks of the 2000s in Ole Miss football history. Number 5, Jordan Taamu. Jordan Taamu. He's a player that popped in because of an injury whenever the next great thing was supposed to be a quarterback. Well, he got hurt against LSU. Jordan Taamu came in and actually performed quite admirably. He was the quarterback of A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf, some of y'all may remember, and he put up massive numbers. He was a true dual threat quarterback. There was, some things holding him back on the defensive side of the ball, but offensively, the guy put up numbers and put the ball where it was supposed to be. And it was actually just a pleasure to watch play. He did get, I believe he did get injured his senior year towards the, in the state game maybe. That allowed Matt Corral to come in and play. But overall, he actually left a mark. He was very professional. He was great to deal with. He was fun to look at him evolve over the course of football. But that is number 5. Number 4, Jevon Snead. Rest in peace. Definitely still messes with me that he is gone. But Jevon had a great career at Ole Miss, with 2-year career at Ole Miss. Upset Florida in Gainesville. The LSU game in 08 and 09. The Tennessee game in 09. The Houston Nutt era was only really successful because of this kid. He was a transfer from Texas, whether or not you know. And fun story, whenever I was working at Ole Miss, one of the pay sites at Ole Miss at that time literally stalked me around Walmart. Literally like cartoon Pink Panther, Inspector Clouseau stuff, peeking behind shelves to see what's going on. And it took him 45 minutes, and he came up and just asked me one question: is Jevon coming? And I was like, why would I tell you if he was? And he slurked away and everything's going on. But that's a true story from a pay site, just slurking around to do that, to find out if Jevon got here. And after that, of course, he did get here. He did his transfer sit-out year. That would have been Coach O's last year. And then 2 years with the Houston Nutt regime, where big moments and big memories are just naturally a part of what he brought to the table. So it was actually quite great, and decent memories of Jevon being here. Absolutely. Number 3. This is the part where it's going to start getting a little bit controversial, and it's because the totality of the meaning of the quarterbacks are taken into account. But number 3, Chad Kelly. He's on this list because Ole Miss made it to a Sugar Bowl. Did that in 2015, beat Oklahoma State. Big year in 2015, beat Alabama. Had a couple of slip-ups against Florida and against Memphis. And I believe one more against Arkansas. And the team went 10-3, absolutely successful. People remember that team maybe because of other pizzas that were on the table. The culmination of a build. It was before the Hugh Freeze thing fell off a cliff. It was probably the last game of the positive Hugh Freeze era. But Chad Kelly had a monster arm, and he had great legs. He could run the ball as well. And probably the only thing comparative that we have to Chad Kelly at that time is Matt Corral now. As far as physical attributes playing the position. Matt Corral, 500 yards rushing, 3,000-yard passes, and a 10-game SEC-only schedule. That's nothing to sneeze at. Chad Kelly, other than Johnny Football, has put up the most total yards in SEC history. The only one ahead of him is Johnny Football, who's ahead of him twice. Johnny Manziel won the Heisman. It'd have been interesting to see what it would have looked like if Ole Miss wouldn't have slipped up against Florida. I think that would have looked a lot different. And I think his career would have been shaped a lot different. Obviously, in the NFL, he is bouncing around from team to team, trying to figure out a way to, hold on the league. He's done a couple of practice squads. My guess, and what I want, is him to be in the USFL, be the quarterback of somebody like the Tampa Bay Bandits 2.0, and have a little bit of fun and just completely blow it out. And then after that, an NFL team's probably going to take a chance on you because they want to see you play in a games type situation. So these minor leagues are going to become important. That'd be the USFL and the XFL. This single entity ownership that came from soccer and MLS is like it's already saved the WNBA, and now these multiple football leagues, they're going to try and do it as well, but they're going to do it from a single entity position, which of course means, not to get off on a tangent, the first 5 years of the league are paramount. Once you get past that, you're fine, but those first 5 years are going to be tough. Number 2, Bo Wallace. Now, when I was putting this list together, I bounced back and forth from 2 and 3, Chad Kelly and Bo Wallace. And the tiebreaker was given to Bo Wallace because of what he meant to the program at large. And what he meant whenever Hugh Freeze took over, if you remember, the year before we were having massive quarterback problems. It was a mess. It was absolutely a mess. I think the year before we played 4 quarterbacks. It was rough. Bo Wallace not only came in and stabilized it, over the course of his 3 years at Ole Miss, got us to an Access Bowl, which is what the Sugar Bowl actually was the next year that Chad Kelly got us to. It wasn't like just going to the Sugar Bowl. At that point, it was an Access Bowl, just like the Peach Bowl. Ole Miss got ran out of that, but Bo Wallace was hurt. He got hurt like 2 or 3 games early that year. He has the big wins over 2014 Mississippi State whenever they had a chance to go to the college football playoff. LSU did that. Beat Texas at Texas. Alabama win. Auburn win. He caught a touchdown pass against Auburn. So lots of great moments that led to the ability to get recruiting classes like Robert Kindiche, Laquan Treadwell. None of those would have been possible without Bo Wallace. So that's the reason he is number 2 on this list. is what he did for the program, and people should not forget that. Absolutely should not forget that. And remember Bo Wallace. I think he's at Pearl River Community College, offensive coordinating now. Remember that guy. He led. There's no Sugar Bowl without Bo Wallace. Period. Doesn't happen. All those players that were eventually good enough to get us to the Sugar Bowl were because of Bo Wallace and what he did. And that's off a first year 6-6 season. And off like a 2-10 season. The worst season in Ole Miss history. The very next one, they went 6-6 and eventually ended up in an Access Bowl. Number one. Have you figured out who number one is yet? Yes. It's pretty obvious. Number one is Eli Manning. Probably the best football player to ever come through Ole Miss. Regardless of generation, regardless of time, regardless of everything. By the end, he could do it all. He was an increasingly special player that was overshadowed by his big brother. People want to bag on Eli. Right now, the big argument right now is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? I think he is. Yeah, 2 Super Bowls, both of them over the GOAT. That really is all you need to know. But in college, he was a quiet version of Peyton Manning. He was by far the most talented player on the field, no matter who Ole Miss played. And it was up to him to will results to happen. Make plays. So we're talking massive pressure. We're not dealing with a wide receiver core that Bo Wallace had. We're not dealing with Laquan Treadwell, Quincy Adebayo, Cody Core, all those guys that played in the league. Over the course of 3 years, Eli Manning, he had Chris Collins, good player. Trey Freifogel, Mike Espy, Tay Biddle, Doug Ziegler. Not exactly the same level of names, not exactly the same level of talent on the field. Yet, in 2003, Ole Miss went 7-1 and lost to eventual national championship by 3 points at home, which would have sent Ole Miss to Atlanta if they'd have won that game. And that LSU team won the national championship. Went down, beat Oklahoma, won the national championship. And it was a 17-14 game. It was the first Ole Miss's back moment in 40 years. It just was. From November of that time until the Cotton Bowl was the first time in 40 years that you really, 30 years at that point, and Ole Miss's back moment was actually happening. And it wasn't because of massive talent all over the field. It was because of one player willing those guys to another level and doing unbelievably special things. And Eli graduated the year before I got to Ole Miss football. So I was there, Cuts last year, first 2 years of Orgeron, and then I went to Rivals for close to a decade, and then I went to local TV in the media. So it's worth understanding, and it isn't anything negative to do with Ole Miss, a negative point, but people need to recognize the accomplishment.